Right now, I'm seeing a lot of buyers that are saying, I'm worried. I'm worried about where interest rates are and what my monthly payment is, and they're super, super nervous. We are right now on September 29th of 2023. The third quarter is coming to an end, and the stock market's not too happy right now. The stock market has been happy this year because the stock market has said, hey, we're going to go up in interest rates, and then we're going to come right back down in interest rates. And the Federal Reserve has said, not going to happen. We're going to keep interest rates higher longer. And what that's really doing is it's pulling money out of the stock market. And it's pulling money out of the stock market for two reasons. Because A, it's making it harder for companies to invest in growth. Because if you're growing a factory, you have to build a new factory, add on and buy new equipment. And guess what? That costs money. And if you're paying a higher interest rate to borrow the money to build a new factory that you're not actually going to be able to use for 2 or 3 years, now, during that 2 or 3 years, you're going to employ the architects and the engineers and the contractors and pay the permit fees and all that stuff. So there's money being pumped into the economy even before your factory actually starts producing any goods or services. But you're going to say, well, shoot, if I'm not going to start actually making money for 3 years, why don't I just postpone a year and hope that interest rates are a little lower a year or two from now? And then if I'm not making more money in 3 years and instead it takes 4 or 5 years from now, it's not that big of a difference, but it costs me a lot less money in the meantime. So companies are investing less in growth. That's causing the stock market to come down. The second thing is you can make a bunch of money just putting it into a CD. You literally can get paid over 5% right now on certificates of deposit, even some savings accounts. Why would you invest money in the stock market? And I'm not telling you don't invest in the stock market. What I'm saying is this is what the federal government, not the federal government, this is what the stock market is, why the stock market is dropping. Because everybody's saying, hey, I can put money in stocks and they're going to do this, and maybe I make an 8 or a 10% return. But if I can make 5.5% guaranteed, I don't have to take any risk. 5.5% is really good money for a lot of people. So if you think about it, the stock market is suffering because of that. And I think that's going to last for a while. The Federal Reserve has said we're going to keep interest rates higher longer. That's caused mortgage rates to climb in the last week. We're pushing mid to high sevens now in a lot of cases. So we're seeing a significant uptick in mortgage rates because of the fact that even the mortgage world, the traders that were deciding how much do we set the interest rate on mortgages, expected the peak in the fall. Now, we think we're hitting the peak right now, but guess what? It stays there for a long time. And the longer it stays, the harder it is to survive. The harder it is for companies that are just barely hanging on, for borrowers who bought a home saying, hey, marry the house and date the rate. It's a great concept. It's very, very accurate. The question is, how long do you have to date the rate and how abusive is the relationship? Like, that's not really a good thing if you're in a environment where you're stuck dating the rate and the rate is not very nice to you. So just recognize, and I've said it for a long time, make sure that you can, not comfortably, make sure that you can make the monthly payment, even if you did a temporary buy down. Make sure that you actually can afford to write a check for the full amount of the monthly payment after the buy down is over. Because temporary buy downs were done a lot a year ago, and some of them were only 1 year buy downs. Those people's payments have now gone back up. Others are 2 year buy downs, and they took a step up right now, and they're going to take a final step up next year. And I don't know if rates are going to be down at that point. We're dealing with a housing market right now that is suffering because of it. House prices are continuing to stagnate. Now, prices have come back up overall, but we're seeing right now, I'm seeing a lot of buyers that are saying, I'm worried. I'm worried about where interest rates are and what my monthly payment is, and they're super, super nervous. And so a few of my buyers have pulled back. They've gotten an offer accepted and said, I can't do it. It's just that it's tipped the scales a little bit too far. And so it's causing the market to be in flux. And I think we're going to deal with that flux for the next 6 months. I think we're going to deal with low inventory of homes, and we're going to deal with a low volume of sales. Now, that doesn't mean prices are going to drop, but it means we're going to have more buyers backing out. We're going to have a lot more houses going back on the market. And that's an opportunity for the buyers who are serious about capitalizing on this market. And I'll give you a quick story about a buyer that I just met with this week that reminded me of what you can do if you are brave in an environment where everybody else is scared. So if you rewind back to 2008, that was a really bad time. House prices were dropping. Everybody was having their home foreclosed upon. Everybody was saying buying a home and owning a home, bad, 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 bad. It is bad. You're not a good thinker if you're thinking about buying a home in this market. And I helped a buyer buy a home for $55,000. And I got that buyer a special down payment assistance program at that point in time that gave him the money he needed for the down payment. So he bought that house with zero down payment. He's had that same home for 15 years now, 15 years. And that house is worth $300,000. He bought it for 55. It's now worth $300,000. Even after paying the fees for selling the home, he's making $220,000. $220,000 of an asset in 15 years. And he was only paying $1,000 a month. And you're going to say, oh my gosh, John, $1,000 a month, nobody can have a payment like that. Everything's relative. Okay. Actually, it's less than $1,000 a month, but everything is relative. And so that was a $55,000 home. But that $55,000 home went up, and it went up to $300,000. And if he had listened to everybody else, if he had listened to everybody say, this is a bad time to buy a home, guess what? He wouldn't have bought the home. He'd be paying $1,500 or $2,000 a month in rent right now, and he'd have zero to show for it. Instead, he locked in his monthly payment, and he kept getting appreciation and growth. And that comes over time. And everybody said it's the worst time to buy a home in 2008, and prices kept going down. He actually should have bought the home in 2011 because that was the bottom of the market. So he spent 3 years. The first 3 years he owned the home, the value of his home kept dropping and dropping and dropping. So he would have been better off buying in 2011 than 2008. But you can't time the market. You can't know when the bottom has been hit until after it's past the bottom. And once it's past the bottom, everybody is jumping in trying to buy, and now it's a frenzy. So what do you have to think about when you are making this decision is really you have to think about short-term versus long-term. And in this client's situation, short-term, it was painful. As a matter of fact, you probably heard from friends and family saying, see, I told you it was a bad idea. See, I'm the smart one that didn't buy a home. And you bought a house for 55 grand that's now worth $40,000. Haha, you're kind of dumb for doing that. Well, guess who's laughing now? Guess who's laughing now when he's literally walking away with over $250,000 and he's got buying another house for $150,000 on the East Coast, paying it off and having another $100,000 in the bank. How does that happen in any other way except home ownership? So don't be afraid of the market. Look forward to the market where everybody is afraid, and we're in that market today. So if you're in that position, give me a call. If you have student loans and you don't know how to manage through it, give me a call. I want to help guide you through this turmoil and help you so that 15 years from now, you can be just like my client and having a significant asset and be able to look back on that decision and say, you know what? I'm glad I had courage when everybody else was afraid. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.